Shit, it's recording now. Alright, cool. So I'm apparently very bad at making a video every single day, just because I think my life is too hectic for words right now, and that's just my own personal opinion. But fittingly enough, day 4 video is about handling awkward situations, and since I've had about 4 beers in me, this might be an awkward situation. Obviously, my glasses are also askew. That's because my ears are askew as well. Um, so, awkward situations. I've had a lot of them, of course. Having to deal with trans-related issues. Um, in the beginning, the awkward situations, of course, were people getting pronouns wrong or, messing up with a name and everything, but those are not as much of a concern. Nowadays, I feel like the most awkward situations for me are situations in which I feel something has been said that is kind of offensive or is not quite factual, let's say. And then how I'm supposed to deal with that. Do I say something? Do I point out, how it's not exactly right for them to say what they said, or do I just let it go? And it's tough. It's tough to know if somebody you're really, really close with says something like that. Should you say something, or should you jeopardize that friendship or call them out in front of everyone? Like, is that something you should do? Because let's say they are close to you, maybe you should feel like you can. But on the other hand, you look at a situation with a complete stranger and you have an opportunity to make a point, something that they may never get to learn otherwise. Do you do it in that situation? Or, I mean, that's the most common thing that happens for me when people say something or people assume something. Some joke about, you know, gender or some stereotype about men and women or some conflation of sex and gender. And do you want to say something? Do you always want to be that person that says, hey, now, you're not getting the full picture here? And I found the best way to handle those situations is that you can't always do it in the moment, but when the opportunity does present itself, you can almost disguise it as a joke. You can point it out while in a funny kind of way. What they said is not exactly true, and then they'll think about it for a second. I mean, it's still going to be funny, but it'll make them think, and then that's what happens when I have close friends that make comments like that, and it's usually nothing offensive. It's just something that's sort of wrong, and as in the other situation where I don't really know somebody, I find it more appropriate to be less subtle because I don't know them. I'm not going to see them again. If what I say happens to really, really piss them off or embarrass them, well, it's no big deal to me because I'm telling them how it really is or I'm just pointing something out. Um, I mean, other awkward situations that have arisen have generally had to do with work, um, applying for jobs, people not knowing I'm trans, for example, um, until I'm already at work, which I've actually found is it's probably going to be a little bit more beneficial for me. Um, I I guess that depends because my first job outside of college where I applied, I didn't know until I had already been hired and I was filling out paperwork. Whereas the job I'm in now, I talked about it in the interview pretty openly. Um, and I think that openness might have been one of the reasons that I got hired. But it's not always going to be like that, of course. And especially in the state that I live in, I can never be sure. I can never be sure of if I'm going to be able to have a job or keep a job based on the fact that I'm trans. I mean, in Pennsylvania specifically, they can pretty much fire you just because they don't like you. Um, I think another awkward situation that I don't know how to handle is my brother. I haven't seen him in a couple of years. I just get to hear about him from my parents. I don't really get any letters from him anymore. We don't really communicate in any way. Sort of last time I think I've seen him 2 years ago. Maybe a little bit more, I'm not sure, but it was a while ago, and a lot has changed about both of us. And I did think he was going to be coming home this January, but he got denied parole, and now I don't know. He has to obviously wait until next year. Am I going to be here? Am I not? I'm not sure, and I'm not sure how or when or if these things between us are going to get resolved. I do have hope. It's just I'm not sure about what the next step in that is. Other than that, not a lot of situations are awkward for me anymore. Just a couple little things, but the things that used to make me feel awkward don't really. Because the jokes, I know that I see, they don't feel awkward, they piss me off. Jokes made at the expense of people like me on purpose, that kind of stuff just kind of pissed me off. But little things that my friends say, even like things that used to really get me riled up, I'm not as feisty about it anymore. I'm way more calm. I'm more subtle about the way I want to educate people. I'm not completely in your face all the time about things. I can't be an extremist about everything all the time. I pick and choose my battles instead of going after every little fight like it's the end of the world. And I think that not just comes from being further along in transition, but being older. I guess I was going to say being outside in the real world, outside of college, where you're surrounded by people who have that same sort of feistiness about them. You want to fight every battle. Now I'm not in a world like that, and I realize that you can't always do that. You don't have enough left over, and but a lot of it is just getting older. In more ways than just years, I do feel that my ability to handle awkward or upsetting even situations has grown dramatically. I'm in a much more stable place right now in my life. In coming back to the place I grew up, I've realized since the setting is the same as when I grew up, much about me other than that has changed, and I feel more comfortable in resolving a lot of situations, or even just solving those problems without making a huge fiasco and making chaos out of it. I think, however, you're always going to have those situations that become awkward and you don't really know what to do. So my default in that situation has always been to project that awkwardness onto someone else, or be confident in your own awkwardness, which is kind of what I do on stage. But no, if someone is intentionally trying to make me feel awkward, the most effective way to make them feel awkward is to be completely comfortable with yourself. And that's something that I wish I had figured out how to do more effectively many, many years ago. So I think that's how I'll leave it right now. I know this is a little bit more general of a video and not as emotional as the one before it, but it still conveys, I think, a point. So I'll try to get the next video out there, the actual tomorrow. But if I don't, I apologize, and you will see one from me shortly. All right, take care.